Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for registering for the webinar. I'm always so flattered and amazed that people are willing to give me their time. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate all 450 of you that registered for this. So thank you so, so much. What I want to talk about today is what I'm seeing as the evolution of enterprise communities. And this is informed both by my own research and experience, what we're seeing our clients go through, what we're noticing in the industry as well, and some of the bigger trends that are out there. But before I go deep into that, I want to talk a little bit about me. So I was born in a small town in the UK called Crawley, which isn't a town probably any of you have heard of at all. And I was visiting there a couple of weeks ago, and like many of the towns that were built after World War II, it's a new town that was built because they wanted to get the population out of London and to towns around the city. And so at the time when it was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was a place to be. But I think it's fair to say these days, not so much. And one of the things I realized when I'm walking down the high street just a couple of weeks ago is that it's completely changed. Like now, the high street is full, not of the usual stores that you might expect a high street to have, but it's eateries, it's betting shops, it's real estate agents. And that's essentially it. And I was thinking a lot about that. Like, why is that the case? What's happened that the high street has so completely changed that it's very clear what the focus is today? And what we're noticing in not just this high street, but almost all the high streets in the UK and perhaps the USA as well, is that the stores that are around are changing. And there's bigger trends at work here today. And the trend, very obviously, is that retail stores are in trouble. We're seeing in almost every data point we can see that retail stores have been struggling for a long, long time. But I think we'd all acknowledge that retail stores aren't dead. There's always going to be retail stores around. But what is happening is that some are doing well and some are not doing so well. Some are closing or shutting down already, while others are opening new stores and thriving. And the reason for that is that there's different needs. Preferences are beginning to change. And this reminds me a lot of where the enterprise community space is today, which is like retail stores. We are caught in these turbulent changes at the moment. We are caught in an environment where some communities are going to absolutely thrive. They're going to be on the precipice or the place where all these trends will intersect and it will turbocharge them. Others are going to really struggle and they're going to close. And I want to talk about today what I think the strategic options are and what we can do as a result of that. Because fundamentally, the key thing we all have to acknowledge is that the need remains. The need for community remains. The need for retail stores remains. But the preferences change. How we want to engage in these activities is changing, and it's continuing to change every single year. And if we think about just enterprise communities alone today, what have you noticed in the last couple of years? I'll open that up for maybe 30 seconds in chat. What have you noticed has changed in the last couple of years? Focus on AI. Some people say people want answers faster. New post and engagement dropped. AI replaced the organic search. Digitalization bots. These answers are really interesting. It's not where I was going with some of these. Less engagement. Yeah, a lot of people saying less engagement, less participation. It's harder to get people to participate. And let's go through some of the reasons why that is the case. I think all of us have an idea of this, but I think it's worth refreshing why that is the case. I think the biggest one for most of us, because so many communities, especially when it's a public community, are reliant on search traffic. Generally, where people will go to a search engine, they'll type a question, and your community will appear as one of the answers. And so people then visit the answer. And if they don't find the answer, then they ask a question. But what's been happening over the last couple of years is this. And I think this relatively tiny thing, more than pretty much anything else, is the biggest change that's happened to communities since I've been involved in the space. Which now Google is pulling the answer from the community and giving it in a generated response, which means that people don't have to visit your community. They can ask a question and they can get an answer without having to visit your community at all. The actual link is pushed down, the answer is pushed up. And this is kind of a double-edged sword because for the audience, it's a better experience. I mean, yes, like retail stores, we prefer people bought in the store because we can customize and experience and get to know them better. But most people just want to achieve their goal. And so for most people, this is a better experience. But the problem for us is that it's reflected in graphs like this. Some of you might have heard of the alligator graph, which is essentially this, where if you look at Google Search Console for traffic to any community that's out there today, or search site, or content site, or almost anything else, is that the number of clicks is going down, while the total impressions may be hovering around the same, maybe declining slightly as well, which fundamentally means that your community is showing up in search results as often as it used to, but the number of people that click on the answer is collapsing. It's declining rapidly. And this is having such a profound change. One of the most famous examples of this is Stack Overflow. And I think Stack Overflow serves as a very prescient warning to where we are today, which is a community that rapidly grew from great moderation, great engagement, great principles, and it was absolutely thriving. And what's happened in the last couple of months is that engagement has dropped off a cliff. What's been happening is an evolution of all of the changes that we're talking about today. If a lot of people think when they think about Stack Overflow, AI is killing it. And to a degree it is. But if you look at the trends before ChatGPT, there were changing preferences that have been going on for a long time now. And what you also notice is that, yes, engagement was declining, but the last couple of years are being savage, where level of participation has dropped off a cliff. And Stack Overflow isn't alone, but I think because the data is available that we can all see it, it serves as a very present warning of what's going to happen if we do nothing. We did a study of a bunch of communities up till September last year, and we segmented them by high volume, low volume, and mid volume. We scraped lots and lots of data. We analyzed what is the level of engagement and participation using the number of replies instead of questions, but the number of replies. And what we found is that there's been declines for years. Similar to Stack Overflow, a lot of communities have been struggling for a while. But in the last year or so especially since last March, when Google rolled out a bunch of more changes to its search algorithm, I don't think LLMs are having a big impact yet, but Google search definitely is. We're seeing 20 to 40% declines in engagement and participation year on year. And it doesn't matter that much what kind of community you're managing at the moment. There's been a very sudden decline in the level of engagement and participation. And we're seeing this everywhere. A couple of months ago, we hosted a webinar with Microsoft, who are, by the way, the most forthcoming with their data. And they're seeing exactly the same thing, that the level of engagement and the level of participation is collapsing in a lot of the communities out there today, even some of the very biggest ones in the world. That's problem number one. Problem number two, I've talked about this a lot in the past, so I don't want to go too deep into it, is that the audience preferences are shifting today. It used to be that a forum and that kind of solution was how everyone wanted to engage and get answers and participate. But when we do our studies, which we have done, when we did a study, I think around 2,000 people a couple of years ago, what we found is that discussion forums, they do show up. But that's only for brand communities. For almost any other goal, discussion forums aren't the default place where people go to engage and participate. Reddit actually is a big exception to this, but the average discussion forum isn't where people go to learn about a product anymore. Where they go to YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, it's not always the default place where people go to feel a sense of belonging and connect with others, which might be Facebook groups or any of the other groups that are out there. It's not the place where influencers go to build their influence and expertise, which is where they do LinkedIn or Substack or any of the other channels that are out there. And so there's a narrower range of situations where a community, at least a forum-based one, is the right solution. So preferences have been shifting away from the traditional hosted communities that we've been deploying for a while. I remember it wasn't that long ago in the industry, we used to have these huge industry events. So essentially, we used to have these huge industry events hosted by vendors that were about community, just community, not packaged with everything else that was going on. And then over time, these events got a little bit smaller. And now, if I look at the industry events we have, they're tiny. This is a Toronto event I went to a couple of months ago. It's a small number of people packed into a relatively small room. Because right now, that's where the industry is. We don't have anywhere near the size and scale of events we used to because the sponsors aren't there to support it and the people aren't there to support it. There's a reason Community Roundtable haven't hosted an event in a while. There's a reason that everyone else isn't even hosting the same size of events, or they're downscaling their events. It's because there aren't as many people in this industry as there used to be. Trend number 3, enterprise platform instability. I don't want to say too much because I'm sure I'll get another bunch of legal letters from the Chorus team again. What we have at the moment is huge platform instability. And I think I can summarize where the enterprise platform space is right now with this one slide here, which is essentially there are some platforms that seem to be doing okay at the moment. I put Gainsight in that category, Higher Logic. Discourse, despite the layoffs, I think are still doing well, and Verin as well. And then we have the newcomers as well, where we have like Gradual, Better Mode, Bevy, and a few others who are shiny and different. They might get to that stage, but it's choppy waters ahead. And then we have Chorus, which again, has to be careful what I say, but Chorus, who I think are going to go through very turbulent times, and we're seeing the impact of that already. And then we have platforms like Influitive, Jive, and Salesforce, which are still there, but are generally a graveyard at this point today. And that's because there just isn't the market to support the number of platforms that are out there and the number of clients that they need to thrive. And I don't think it's going to end. I think there's going to be continued platform instability in the way ahead. I think the 4 at the top here are probably going to be okay. The 3 on the right, Gradual, Better Mode, and Bevy, have potential, but we really have to see if they can scale up and attract the enterprise clients that they're going to need. The other 4, I'm not optimistic about at all. And the fundamental thing to remember about all of this is that these trends aren't going to reverse themselves. Declining traffic isn't going to stop. It's not going to bounce back. The old ways of this free fountain of newcomers and fresh visitors all the time, that's over. I think we need to prepare for a possible world of Google Zero, where we get zero traffic from search engines. I was talking to someone about this around 5 months ago, and they said, oh, it won't happen. It's not possible. But if I look up the Feverbee site today and the traffic we used to get, because of declining search traffic, we are, I think, 73% down on what we used to be. And we're still doing exactly the same thing. But traffic has declined by 93%. That's what I meant to say, 93%. That's a huge number. So why not 100%? I think it's a possibility. 2, the audience preferences are shifting. That's not going to change. We're going to see continued rise of third-party platforms, declining level of attention, a preference for video over other forms. And it's not absolute. It's not going to go all the way, and we'll talk about that later. Enterprise platform instability, and then the continued rise of LLMs. I think the impact of LLMs haven't really been felt yet. I don't think they're as widespread in use as much as we use them, but I think it's going to become a bigger trend over time. And I remember just this last month, I think about a month ago, or maybe less than a month ago, I posted this on LinkedIn saying that 2015 was probably the worst year for enterprise communities I can recall, talk about the platform situation. I was talking about how a lot of people I know have drifted out of the space. And it occurred to me, will 2026 be better? 2027, 2028? I don't know. But I think it really depends on the decisions that we make this year and the roadmap that we assign ourselves. And when I think about the clients we've been working with over the last few years and how most organizations are approaching this, I don't think there's anywhere near the level of urgency that there has to be, that there should be, to thrive in the future that's being created for us. Someone said that I'm quite gloomy today. It gets better, I promise. From this point, it's all uphill from here. I absolutely swear. But here's where it gets better. We have 2 choices as far as I can see. One is to ride out the storm. And I think an oil rig is how I think about this, because there's still a lot of value in doing what we're doing. Just because things aren't as good as what they used to be doesn't mean our communities still aren't generating the same value. If people are getting answers from a community, even if they're getting it via search, that's extracting it from a community, it's still a community that's delivering that value. And there's lots of situations where you might think, hey, these trends, yeah, they're doing something. They're affecting a lot of the other platforms and communities that are out there, but they don't really affect me all that much. In which case, maybe this is your strategy, that you're going to ride out the storm, that you're going to be like this oil rig, very hard to move, but there's value at the moment, and you're going to ride it out and just adapt as you have to. That's option number one. And I think it's an option that around 60 to 70% of you are going to take. Option number two is you sail to something better. Option number two is where you go through that storm to try and reach a better place, a place that's aligned with current trends, a place that it doesn't feel like you're fighting uphill. However, to get there, you have to go through a very difficult storm because the place where you need to be is very different from the place that we are today. And it might sound like the option two is obviously a lot better than option one, but option two isn't going to be an option for everyone on this call. We all work with organizations and constraints and challenges that come along with those things. And so whichever option is possible to you really depends on your own motivation and what your organization is going to let you do. So let's go with option one, riding out the storm. Everything I've said so far is about as negative as it can possibly be, because I do feel like over the last year, it has been so bad in almost everywhere I look. However, AI has the potential to supercharge your community. I don't think we've even scratched the surface of how valuable a hosted community can be, like the ones that we have. A hosted community can be in the future that could be emerging before us today. I think there's such an amazing opportunity that it is the thing that I think could save a hosted community at the moment. So, a critical thing here is to think of AI as a refinery, which turns a lot of foreign waste into great value at the moment. One thing you should almost certainly be doing is changing how you measure the value of a community. I talked before in my last webinar and elsewhere about how you should measure call deflection in the modern era. Maybe someone can put the link in chat, but it cannot be just counting the number of people to visit your site. There's a better method that's out there that you can find on my website as well. But other things to think about is that AI can extract a lot of value that used to go to waste. You might recognize this graphic I've shared before, that in the past, forms were used to drive engagement, questions, responses, likes, and that was to drive deflection and satisfaction, feedback, and ideas. But there's always all this value which went to waste. Real language that people are using, edge cases, long-tail questions, multi-turn reasoning, all these really interesting things, but we never had a way to really capture that data. We never really had a way to do anything really interesting with it. Now these LLMs and AI can act as refineries which turn this lost value into incredibly useful outputs, where real language, edge cases, long-tail questions, multi-turn reasoning, when combined with organization-created data and resources, that's absolutely amazing for AI support assistants, for product onboarding bots, for RAG search, especially RAG search, for community AI widgets. All these things that used to go to waste can now be used intelligently within a community today. And this greatly increases the quantity of questions that LLMs can satisfactorily resolve. If you think about asking any LLM question without form data, it can answer those that are in the documentation and resources already, right? It can answer those questions. This is a case where people just couldn't be bothered to find the answer. Like the answer existed, but we're lazy and we couldn't be bothered to find the answer, or we didn't know what to search for. But when you add forum data to that, community data to that, it can answer a lot more of the questions that are out there today, leaving just a tiny percentage of unanswered questions. And this is an incredibly useful thing. But all of this, everything I'm talking about right here, this isn't going to happen by chance. This is something that we need to do very deliberately. And it only happens if we improve the quality of knowledge. Right now, trying to find knowledge in a community is a little like trying to find documentation in an archive like this. Yeah, it's there. I'm sure if we find the right category and we look alphabetically or whatever, we will eventually find the information. But that's not where we want to be. That's too much effort, and most people simply aren't going to bother doing that. And the future at the moment of how this is going to look like is pretty clear, I think. The future is going to be more like this. There's a box at the top, people type in their question, and a generated answer will appear. And that generated answer will be a combination of what resources already exist, what's in the community, the training data, ideas, and elsewhere. And it will cite those questions as well and those citations as well. This is what the future is almost certainly going to look like. And how often your community appears in there is going to be a big decider of how valuable your community actually is. So the important thing to realize is that most of us, especially if you're running a mature enterprise community today, you're not in the engagement business anymore. You're in the knowledge business now. And so far, we've done a very bad job at curating expertise in our community. We're being so obsessed to try and drive more engagement and participation, get more questions and more answers, that we generally do a very bad job at optimizing the data that we do have. We generally do a very bad job at making sure that people can easily find past answers and that these answers are actually good. I saw this a while back and it surprised me. Jamie at Spotify saying that community ops should spend 50% of their time and resources tidying up content. That's more important than answering unanswered questions. And I think he's absolutely right. The future at the moment is that we absolutely need to shift our efforts from trying to drive more engagement and participation to looking at the knowledge we have that's in that community today and making changes and optimizations as we go ahead. We want more communities to look like this, the HP community at the moment. What do you notice about this? What are the really good practices that you notice here? I'll give you maybe a minute to answer. You should be able to spot 4 or 5 things. Danielle says unreal views. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually, but I missed that. Loring says clean. Accepted solution is marked. Yep, but it's marked on every question, right? So they developed a system to do that. Proper tagging, yes, what does that mean? Archived, what does archive mean? Kerry says engagement. Yeah, let's try and be more specific about what we mean. Think about the context of what we're talking about today. Tagging comes up, green button indicating this is good. Notes on out-of-date content as well. Yep, Evan's the first person to spot that. Last activity date. And tell me this, why are all these things important? Why are all these things important? They're important for the casual person that visits these. I'm sure they help. But where do they really help? Who is this really for? What is this really for? Marcus, yes. Marcus has got the answer. It feeds the LLMs. Yes. This is almost entirely it. What this does, all these things, what no one else pointed out actually was that the question titles are really specific. If you think about how most people ask a question in a community, a title would be something like, hey, my HP PhotoSmart printer isn't working. Can anybody help? Because we know that members, as much as we love them, they're often not thinking about AI when they ask a question and what the subject line should actually be. All these subject lines are highly optimized. That doesn't happen by chance. Accepted solution is clearly marked. Archive is clearly marked. When it's no longer being updated, that's marked. All these things are incredibly well optimized for AI. And this is just one of many examples I can get to. This is the level we need to get to. We've been working with a bunch of clients on optimizing for AI at the moment. And what we've developed is this model that looks generally like this. It will vary a lot as we go through the process, and it's different for every organization. But there's 5 critical things that we focus on. One is the quality of data at the moment, which is it accurate? Is the data accurate? Is it complete? Is it owned as an asset? 2, is it clear that there are authority signals about what is more trusted than other signals? With any set of answers, if you've got 10 different answers to a question, which one should you trust and which one should you not? 3, the taxonomy. This is where we look at if there's a standardized taxonomy and a consistent structure across the community. 4 is terminology. This is where we look at if there's a consistent terminology that is used both within the community and elsewhere as well. And 5, freshness. Is it clear what's recent? Is it clear what's updated? Is it clear abandoned? And these are the 5 things we have to focus on to optimize our communities today. These are the things we have to improve. And by the way, if you want help, we're happy to help you. We can talk to you after this call. But if you need them to work with, don't try and jump from level 1 to level 4 tomorrow. That's going to be way too much work and you're going to drive yourself crazy. But focus maybe this quarter going from level 1 to level 2, the next quarter level 2 to level 3, and slowly get there. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but you will get there over a period of time. A good journey that we've been deploying recently is first is to stop the rot, make sure that there isn't more and more content that is going to be more difficult to manage and control. Then we fix the structure, reduce the ambiguity in terms of the vocabulary and terminology and these kind of things, improve the hygiene of the community. One of the most challenging things is that you can't verify and check every single question. So you usually go with the top 10 or 20% of discussions and engagement and activities out there and work with that. And then you introduce the freshness signals after that. But you have a journey that you go through. And I think more than hosting an event or building a sense of belonging or all these things, which are also another angle you can go down, and that could be great. I think if you're hosting a mature community today, this is what you need to be doing. Okay, let's go to option 2. This was option 1. This is if you're in that oil rig situation today. Let's think about what happens if we sell to somewhere better. Where might we go? The challenge with selling something better is that where I think we need to be involves going through a huge amount of turbulent weather to get there. It requires, I think, 3 big changes. And I've talked a lot about these over the last 2 years or so. So I'll be repeating myself a little, but hopefully it gives you some idea of where you could be thinking about what your roadmap might look like. Change number 1 is to focus on programs over platforms. Programs over platforms. For a long time, we've focused on a strategy, which is let's drive everyone to our community and then keep them there for as long as we possibly can. But we're not a social media platform, and that's a game that I think we're going to lose. This approach that everyone wants to build a reputation and share their expertise and be entertained and learn, discovered, have events all within one platform just isn't aligned with how people actually engage or engage within any topic whatsoever. I've spoken a lot about chess in the past, but I don't know for any hobby you have, but for me, it's chess. And what I found with chess especially is that I don't participate just in one community. I've got a WhatsApp group with some friends that are into chess. There's some influencers I follow. There's some events that I follow and I go to. There's YouTube videos I follow. There's different places I go to for different needs. And so we have to change our approach, which is instead of trying to drive everyone to one hosted community, because think about yourself. For any hobby that you're interested in, where do you go to learn about it? Is it just one hosted platform? I'm betting it isn't. The reality is we need what I've been calling, controversially apparently, the community everywhere approach, which is instead of just relying on this one platform, we're identifying what are the preferences of the audience, and then where do we go to satisfy those preferences in the right way? Where it's a program that we run that is aligned with where the audience wants to engage and participate to satisfy that need, instead of trying to change their behaviors and habits and where they prefer. Because like I said before, the needs are the same. We still have the need to belong, learn, support, and have influence to a certain degree, but the preferences are definitely beginning to change. So what we're going to be seeing more and more are community-based programs that span multiple platforms. So programs that are going to help people build a reputation, be entertained, learn, discover, have debates. These aren't just going to be in one community anymore. They're going to be programs that we run that will span multiple platforms, multiple forms of engagement. Another way of thinking about this is this. All of us, I would say, are part of the community industry community, right? But is there one place that we go to? I think that we go to LinkedIn, we follow some events, we might join some private groups. I don't think there's one central place, and that's a reality for everyone else today. So think about what programs make sense for the needs you need to satisfy in your community. And what you increasingly find is that it's going to run the whole gamut. There's going to be programs that you run on channels that you own. There'll always be a place for a hosted community, I think. Maybe not every single brand, but they're always going to exist, like retail stores again. There'll always be a place for own channels. You'll be running programs across partially owned channels. You'll be engaging and supporting the existing groups that are out there today. You'll be looking at where your audience goes, for what needs, and how you can engage within those needs. And then the outcomes are going to be either something quite specific, clear results, subscriber growth, or leads and demos, or new customers, or it might simply be changing the attitudes of your audience. But this is where we need to be, because the reality is things have changed so fast. A while back, I saw this. These are the Sony Facebook groups. What do you notice about this? Think of this. Sony has an official community right now on Chorus, I think, that doesn't get anywhere near the level of engagement and participation of these groups. Yeah, Sam has it. None of these are run by Sony. And what else do you notice about these groups? Specific. Yes, they're very specific. And that's what makes them so successful. I know it'd be easy for any of us to be like, well, I can create a community and have a category for each of these things. But then immediately, the signal to noise ratio is a lot worse. People want hyper-focused experience, because if you buy one product, you don't always want to have discussions about other products in the same place. You want to connect solely to people within that space as you. And this is happening more and more and more. And again, hosted communities are going to have their space. But for some brands like Sony and others, you have to recognize that, hey, the reality is this. And we have to think about, okay, how do we engage with this? It doesn't make sense for us to compete in a battle that we're going to lose, but it does make sense for us to make sure we know every single person that is hosting these communities today. Make sure that we're supporting them where we need to. See if they want any staff engaging in these groups if they want to. See if they have all the information and the resources that they need. This is an extreme example, but there's more and more examples that are emerging that are like this today. We worked with Intel a while back on a program to get their employees building their community and engaging with the ecosystem that's out there. And it meant providing them with resources and expertise and having them build their own mini communities on LinkedIn and elsewhere. And it worked incredibly well. People want to engage directly with staff, and they feel more part of a community when staff are doing that. And it's been known for years that when you have staff engaging with members in their community, whether it's on a hosted community or elsewhere, people really like that and they engage and they feel more a part of something. So the type of programs that we're running now expand and incorporate so many more things than what they used to. And there's so many more examples of this on YouTube and elsewhere that are emerging. That'd be crazy to think just in terms of platforms. So the first thing is to think programs over platforms. 2, ecosystems over communities. Ecosystems over communities. Similar to what I was just talking about here, but I think for many of us, it's going to be more important to build a resilient ecosystem than just a single community experience. And that ecosystem will be event hosts, customer advocates, leaders, peer networks, and developers, spinning out this ecosystem around brands where people are supporting and engaging and helping one another. Some of what we do at the moment is so different from what we did 10 years ago. Some of it looks like this, where when we look at a community, we look at what is the ecosystem like at the moment? Where do people go to learn, to get support, to feel a sense of belonging and to improve and to have some sense of influence? And then we map out everyone that's in that space and we think, well, with our brand, how connected are we to these folks? And how much do they like us? And you can see here, there are some places where we have no connection to these folks whatsoever. And maybe they're neutral, they don't like us. There's some people we have very close connections to, and we feel a very strong sense of support and cooperation with them. But a lot of this is turning these circles green, regardless of how big they are, as represented by size here, but making sure that we are spinning up an ecosystem that is incredibly resilient, that doesn't rely on us to do every single thing. It's an ecosystem that supports us, that supports other members in the community, and where our level of control is more based around influence and support than direct control to delete and remove things. And when we talk about ecosystem-centric, we talk about some very specific things, such as developing more advocates, more successful groups, better events, more employee advocates, better resources, more informed influencers as well. These are the kind of programs that we see running more and more. Again, it's not going to be a world where we can easily control everything. It's not going to be a world where we can easily measure everything. It's not going to be a world where the work neatly fits into the silos that we have at the moment of marketing or social media or support. There's going to be a lot of fluidity around this and things that have to change. But this is where we need to be. We think about this a lot and see so many examples where we're still doing things that are out of date. Creating content for a community is probably one of the most amazing examples. At the moment, a lot of people still create a calendar and create content for that, where they ask people what they need, they create it, they publish it and promote it. But this doesn't work anywhere near as well as what it used to. The right thing to do today is to identify what are the top topics at the moment, what are the best member-created resources that already exist, and link to them, drive traffic to them so they're going to create more resources. Drive more traffic to them, they'll create more resources, build up superstars in your community. Let people absolutely thrive and build their own audiences. Highlight the content you want to feature and you want to see more of as well. There's a better way of doing content than most people really aren't exploring at the moment. And what you really want to be doing is populating your ecosystem with experts, people that are loved and recognized by your community. That goes far beyond the strengths of your community. If you're SAP, you might be supporting the people that are on Tech Today. You might be supporting the people that are creating videos and tips and tricks. You might be promoting what other people in the ecosystem are doing in your newsletter to members of your community. There's no shortage of ideas and opportunities. The key is thinking, how do I build and improve the ecosystem, not just my community? And three, and obviously there's more than three, but the three I'll focus on is we need community architects, probably as much or more than community managers today. Right now, what's happening is organizations end up with what we call engagement spaghetti, which looks a little bit like this. Where you have different departments using different channels to talk to the same people over and over again. I was joking with someone a while back about the thing that surprised me most when I became a consultant. And I was lucky enough to work with some really amazing brands like Apple, Google, Microsoft, SAP. And without naming any names, the thing that surprised me most is how disorganized most organizations are at really important but really basic things. And it doesn't make sense to have different departments using the same channels or different channels to talk to the same people in different ways. It often ends up being an absolute mess. And this doesn't make sense. What we do need are community architects to organize all this. What we have at the moment are community managers who are typically, not always, responsible for one or two slices of this pie. So it might be customers and super users, it might be prospects, it might be influencers, but people that are generally just focused on that one narrow slice of the pie. What we need are community architects to organize all this, because we can't keep having everyone do their own thing. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of waste. So what we need is a common strategy of how we engage people, the governance structure behind this, stakeholder engagement to advocate and support and have a consistent story, an improved technology framework so we don't have data that's split across so many different channels, staff training, best practices. Like, we need all these things in place. And this is the role of the community architect. This is what I think so many of us need to evolve to. And again, it's going to take a lot of work to get there, and a lot of advocacy to support that and make that work. And I think fundamentally, a new evolution model is needed. Right now, the evolution model we've been using with some clients looks a little bit like this. And by it's very similar to the community roundtable model, so check out that as well. Is that there's a couple of things that really matter in terms of strategy, engagement programs, leadership and governance, knowledge, quality, and measurement. But even if you're at stage 1 or 2, we have to be going to stage 3, and then most importantly, up to stage 4. Knowledge quality especially is one that didn't used to appear here, and now absolutely does. We have to go, for many of us, from just focusing on these customer support, discussion-centric experiences on a single platform at the moment, to being a growth engine, a community set of programs that run across a hosted community, independent platforms as well, building out an ecosystem, decentralizing experiences, having a center of excellence, and then making sure we're doing a really great job on the knowledge and governance as well. This is where we need to be. This is the model that I think is going to propel us to where we need to be. Or you just need a reference point to think about what programs or strategies should you be using. This is what might really, really help. So to wrap things up, and I'm going to share one more thing as well before we get to the questions. I think better times could be ahead, but it's not going to happen if we keep doing what we're doing. Industry revival is possible. Here's an example. Can you guess what industry this graph represents? What industry do you think this represents? Physical albums, which have been in decline for such a long time. And if things didn't change, this is where they would ultimately be, an industry that was absolutely destroyed. But the reality is there was a revival. Global recorded music has absolutely bounced back, but it looks completely different from the model before. And this is where I think we're at now today, which is the old model. If we just cling to what we were doing, that customer support, we're going to end up with something that looks like this. Same measurements, same metrics. I think we're very certainly going to head here. But if we adapt to things that are changing, embrace the other trends that are going on, embrace that we're not going to control everything, I think a revival is possible. And so we have to stop trying to survive and start trying to thrive. And I think ultimately, choose which pain you want. You can ride out the storm, or you can sail through the storm to something better. Before we get to questions, I want to share one more thing. This is going to be a quick promotional piece. So if you're not interested in that, I'm not going to judge you if you leave. But we are opening up today a new program that we're running, AI Ready Communities, which is going to be a guided 12-week program to maximize the value of AI in your community, to really get you aligned with all of the trends that we're talking about. It's going to be a 3-month cohort-based thing. It's not a course or a webinar program. It's going to be a guided hands-on experience with a small group of peers. We're supported by our frameworks, facilitation, and direct inputs. We're going to get your community to where it needs to be to thrive. And that means we're going to have live working sessions, probably on Monday evening, but we might change that to accommodate who's actually there. Structured frameworks. We're going to have an analysis of where you are today and where you need to get. You're going to get ongoing mentoring and support and direct input from some of our guest experts, especially the people that are focusing more on the technical side of doing this. So month 1, like we talked about, we're going to go through the evaluation and risk identification, really assessing where you're at the moment, identifying the biggest issues, evaluating expertise and the visibility of them, then mapping AI risk and value zones. Month 2 is where we fix the structure, establish all the things we just talked about, authority and verification, separating content intent, standardizing the structure and taxonomy, and enforcing specific rules. And month 3, signal quality, freshness, and AI enablement, where you are absolutely where you need to be to implement AI today. Because adding AI before you've solved these issues is going to do a lot more harm than good. And that's going to mean reducing the ambiguity and conflict, make sure the freshness signals are clear, defining the guardrails you're going to use, and the AI operating model as well. So it's going to be 3 months of guided sessions, 12 personal sessions, access to all our frameworks and tools, peer learning with a very small group of compatible organizations, and applied work that's focused on your community. It begins on February the 16th. We're going to charge a fee of $4,000 per organization for it. And that means unlimited internal participants. What I mean by that is that we know that it doesn't make sense for just one person to join individually. We want you to bring your team, maybe your engineers to these sessions. We want you to bring or to feel comfortable bringing as many people as you need to. So if you want to learn more about that, go to feedbe.com/AI ready. You can sign up there. And for this week only, we have a 25% discount just for the people that really put their faith in us and are willing to sign up this week. So if you're interested, please sign up there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully this is useful. We got maybe 7 or 8 minutes for questions now. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then, yeah, quick question from my side. Did this help? Was it useful? I'll try to get through the question. Charles, will I be able to get hold of the recording? I'll post it and share it with the mailing list on LinkedIn. I'll probably chop it up a little for different videos and stuff as well, but I'll post the whole recording to everyone that signed up. The slides, yeah, I can send out slides. To be honest, I don't really have an easy place to send out the slides anymore. I miss when like SlideShare was like a big thing, but maybe I'll just upload them to the Feverby site and let you load them. Thanks everyone for your kind comments. Lauren, Crystal, Gabby, Jost, I think I'm pronouncing that right. VJ Watkins, Allison, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Dan Schmidt. I'm trying to get through all the questions. Sorry if I'm missing everyone. Thank you. Kathy, it's been ages. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, like I said, the slides, I'll probably just share them in the... I don't know exactly where I'll share them, but I'll share them. Steve, how is Instagram X and similar affected by the current dynamics? Honestly, I don't know. I don't really have a lot of data. I think Instagram, I mean, these platforms have a gravitational pull because everyone is there. Instagram, I think, is absolutely thriving. Can't get any good data on as well. I don't know what's not. So I don't really know. But I think Instagram and YouTube are thriving. There's a lot of reports that are published in the UK showing what platforms are most popular at the moment. Facebook, I think, is doing okay. I think they've had a bit of a decline, but yeah, some of these platforms just have a gravitational pull. Nick, thank you. Caroline, Kenneth. Someone said their parents were from Crawley, and I can't remember who, but interesting. Gabby, Cam, Steve, thank you. Where can I see the Microsoft webinar? If you go to feed, you find where the blogs are, and you scroll maybe 5 months or so. I don't remember exactly when I did it, but it's around 5 months ago. But I definitely recommend that you watch it. I also did a separate one on how we change our deflection metrics, which I really think you should spend some time on. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Chris Stanton, I hope you're doing well. Thanks, John. John, just drop me a line after this if you can. Megan, clarifying, yeah, if you signed up, you'll get the recording. If there's any more questions about recording, I'm going to beat someone over the head with the recording. Yeah, Toby makes a good point. You can only fish in so many pools. Absolutely. But I'm not saying you should be everywhere where your audience is. I'm saying you have to be more strategic in that. What I mean is you don't have to participate every single where. It means where do people go to satisfy the need that's relevant to you? That's where you should be. And you can always do an 80-20 rule and figure out where it makes the most sense. Jenny, thank you for the affirmation. Dan, do you think ambassador programs are a strong way to lead a diversified, pluralistic community experience? Yeah, I think ambassador and super user programs are going to be critical. I think they're going to be smaller than what they used to be, but I think they are the critical thing to make a lot of this work. We should be investing a lot more time and resources into doing them a lot better than what we do today. Alison, do you have any thoughts on running super user programs that's related to what you... Oh, this is kind of the same question. The same answer. I think we're going to think of communities more and more just on those people that we know well, people that really opt in to be a part of that special group, not just cross an arbitrary barrier of registration. If you want to share your LinkedIn profiles to connect, I'm fine with that, but just do it once. Christian, do you have any data on paid communities like Mighty Network and School? No, I don't. Or none that I would trust. So yeah. Minnie, thank you. Kathy, your thoughts on subreddit for enterprise? Yeah, Reddit's kind of an interesting beast. People use it in different ways. I think it's worth like a pilot scheme to explore for a lot of brands. But I think it's one of the things, if you're going to do it, you have to commit the resources to doing it well and be willing to accept that, hey, this might not work. But Reddit isn't a like-for-like replacement for a support experience. It's where people go to share interesting links, to be entertained, and it's more useful for marketing a lot of the time than support. But your mileage will vary a lot. I can't acknowledge it, everybody here, but thank you, everyone. Any other questions? Let me see if they've forgot anything on the Q&A. Okay. Sorry, I didn't pay attention to the Q&A. Judson, why should customers come to community if they can get answers elsewhere? What's the value of community in the future? I think that's exactly it. I think they're gonna come to a community if the community offers them a better experience than get elsewhere. But most people, when they want an answer to a question, the only thing they care about is speed. Maybe the amount of effort. Like people might ask a question in a community, expect to an expected answer, and that's less effort than waiting on a support call, which might take longer. But speed and efficiency matter most. So if your community doesn't win that game, then you have an issue. Charles, yeah, recording. Dan Rodman, same question. Yeah, same question. Thanks, everyone. Jan, is the webinar chat covered in the recording too? Don't think it is. I'm going to say no. I kind of think the chat should be a bit private. I mean, as private as it can be with, 200 people on the session. Okay, 2 minutes left. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Do consider the program here. We really do want to work with, I think we're going to accept maybe up to 10 organizations in this. We want to keep it relatively small and really make some progress in peer groups. But feel free to reach out to me, richard@feedbe.com, about that. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time, your energy, your questions. It's been absolutely great. So thank you so much. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me at richard@feedbe.com. Thanks, everyone. And I'll see you all at the next webinar in a month or two. Goodbye.